All right, All right, guys, we are back again. COVID cabal, COVID cabal, COVID cabal, COVID cabal. We're back again. What is up, people? How are you doing? Do I need to turn the light on here? Is it getting too dark out? Is it getting too dark out? The season, hey, it's autumn now. Season's changing. We gotta get a little bit more light in here. It's a cloudy day. It is COVID cabal. If you are here, drop a comment in the chat. If you are here, drop a comment in the chat. I want to see who's here. I want to see who's here. I want to see who's here. We are live now, COVID Cabal. Live now, COVID Cabal. What's up? If you are here, drop a comment in the chat. I want to see who's here. I want to see who's here. What's up, man? NJ Tech, what is going on? Uncle Guns, like, comment, subscribe. Guns is not here, but this is your homework. What are you doing this weekend? Fighting opposition, beer, bread, and circus? Or are you strengthening your community group? Stay safe out there. Thank you, Guns. Thank you, Guns. If you guys are here, drop a comment in the chat. Let's go. Let's go. Michael, what's happening? What's happening? If you're here, drop a comment in the chat. I'm going to let a few more comments come in. I'm going to get going. What is happening? What is happening, people? What's up? COVID Cabal. It's COVID Cabal. All right, guys. I am Romeo. What's going on? I am happy to be mostly changing the topic of conversation today from Charlie Kirk. I'm gonna throw the Charlie Kirk chum out there first off, so we can just get this shit out of the way, because it's time to move on. We got the next phase to deal with. He's been buried. God rest his soul. Tyler Robinson's roommates vanished. They don't know what happened to his car. I don't even know if this is just slop, to be honest. I didn't look into it. Maybe it's just slop. Let's see what happens with it. Developments in the story. And then we have Candace. So Candace yesterday was saying how maybe the shooter was underneath Charlie Kirk, shot Charlie Kirk from underneath. Now she's interviewed this person, and they've said that his testimony completely contradicts the FBI, and says the shooter on the roof was holding a smaller firearm, believes Charlie was shot with a lightweight bullet, provided a description to law enforcement that was never released to the public. Assassin was wearing tactical gear. I don't know, guys. I don't know. And I'll say what I said on the last show. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. Deep State directly or indirectly did this attack. And the whole play now is to have left-wing terrorism. I want to, like, this is what I want to talk about. This is the bridge from Charlie Kirk into the main topic of our discussion here. All right. What does the left want to do? What was the plan for America when it came to the cabal? They wanted America to either be under their control, and if they could not bring it under their control, they were going to crash it. They were going to destroy it. That was the whole thing. If Clinton had become elected, they would have had some... We talked about this in season 1 COVID Cabal. All of these theories, which have been, as substantiated as you can get in these things, that they were going to have a nuke go off, and there was going to be, some massive war. There was going to be COVID. They were going to bring America completely to their knees through all these events that the consciousness would not have been prepared to deal with. It wouldn't have been awake to deal with. Trump comes on the scene, and Trump changes everything. Trump changed history. And just to give you an idea of this, imagine if Trump had never won. Not saying never won. Imagine if Trump had never run in 2016. Just the act of him running changed the course of human history. Okay? because him running and him talking, even just talking about the things he did at the level that he did, the fact that he was even the Republican nominee, that in itself may have been enough to throw off all of these plans. Maybe. But the point is, if I look at myself before Trump, I keep saying Trump, what the fuck? Before Trump ran for office, I was asleep. I was asleep. I wasn't happy. I knew things were going bad. I didn't like the way things were going, but I was largely asleep, right? Would I have woken up if Trump hadn't been there? Probably not. Maybe I would have found some other people or whatever, but this is what I'm trying to say here. What I'm trying to say is that they would have been able to pull off all these tyrannical moves and control mechanisms because the population wasn't awake. Trump woke the public up, and then Trump won. And when he won, he fucked up their entire timeline and got them to start committing crimes to try to derail his administration, which are now going to come back and bite them. Okay, that's why when people say that we won the war when Trump won the 2016 election, they're not wrong, because no matter the setbacks we've suffered, no matter the difficulties that we have faced, they had a very tight timeline to be able to pull this shit off, and they have failed. Okay, they failed, and they're never going to be able to get that back on track. The genie is out of the bottle. If you are working as the dark forces do to manipulate energy, you have to do a cascading ping pong effect where you hit one thing that then bounces over here, which you then hit at the same time. It is a very detailed, orchestrated manipulation of psychology. And the way it works is when people don't understand they're being manipulated, because that's the only way the energy flows in the direction they want it to flow. So guys, it is over for them. They're toast. We just have to get through it. I want you guys to understand that. We just have to get through it. We have to go through all of this stuff. Uncle Gun's interruption here. 9 in the building means we should have 9 likes, 9 people commenting. Gentlemen, stack up. That's right. Subscribe, like, and comment to this channel. All right? I want likes and subscriptions. If you want COVID Cabal to get bigger, this is what you got to have happen. All right. So why did I go on that little digression about Trump? What was the point of this stuff? If you cannot, the worst thing in the world that you could happen, they wanted to have the United States under their control. And if they wanted to destroy it, they were going to destroy it on their terms in a controlled demolition that they were able to get the most out of, right? That then they could manipulate the reconstruction of it. And you could see that that's what they were trying to do with all the migration stuff. They were completely trying to transform this country, and they would have succeeded in doing it. Here is the thing. If you can't get it, if you're a psychopath, crybaby, and you can't get what you want, what's the next thing that you're going to do? You're going to try to destroy what somebody else wants. When Trump won the first time, it fucked up all their plans. They thought, we steal the election in 2020, maybe we can get this back on track. Maybe. But I don't really think, to be honest, at that point, they thought that they could do that. I think that they did not believe, and I've said this before, kind of in our mid-season, some of the COVID cabals after 2021. I may have even said it earlier this year that they did not steal the 2020 election really thinking that they would get the White House. That they stole the 2020 election with the hopes that Trump would try to go against them, and then they could fuck up everything. That then they could have everything go in the Civil War. They were trying to create enough chaos and division. I think they looked at it as a win-win. Don't get me wrong. They wanted to take back control of the White House, but I think that they viewed it like, even if he resists us, he's screwed anyway, because we're just gonna then have a civil war. And we have all the tools in our toolkit to set up a civil war. So I say that, where does that leave us at the moment in this whole thing? Where does it place us in the fight? What is actually going on? Again, who killed Charlie Kirk? Well, it doesn't really matter who killed him, because they want us to believe that Antifa did it. They want that. And it's not illegitimate anyway, because they have their Antifa cells committing violence. Even if Tyler Robinson did do it, or he's a patsy, whatever, it doesn't preclude the fact that this is true. But they are trying to sell it. The person who attacked the ICE facility today, right? Who, I guess you could say hilarious. I mean, it's a little soon, right? A little hilariously tried to kill ICE agents and killed the illegals that the ICE agents were taking, then killed himself. This is another Antifa person with his anti-ICE bullet casings. Now, Andrew Tate was very smart enough to point out every single attack now has writing on the casings. Don't buy it. Passport and wreckage BS. Are liberals retarded? Yes. Am I on their side? No. Gov has lied to us about every detail of the shooting so far. Something else is happening. My BS detector is going off heavy. So, yes, I agree with you, Andrew. Something fishy is going on here. Something absolutely fishy is going on here. They are really showing you that the left is doing these things. And then you have these other questions, right? Is the Trump administration not cracking down on these terrorists so that the right will see no lawful solutions and then there will be mass chaos? I don't like having to think this way, but what explains the lack of aggressive response? I think there's a couple things going on with this. These are really good questions. These are the questions we should be asking. Trump's response, I think there's two issues for Trump at the moment. Now, first off, I do think that Trump is responding. Okay, Antifa is a terror organization now. That's significant. Is it everything? No, it's not an international terror organization yet. But it is significant. It's a big step. And now we have this news, right, that Comey is going to be indicted in the coming days. That is another very big step towards going after these deep state actors. But the problem is that there is still a lot of work to be done unraveling this control over our institutions and control over our government. I don't believe that Trump, I think Cerno's taking it too far, in that I don't expect that, I could be wrong about this, and let's see what happens. I don't expect that people on the right are going to start to kill random leftists. I don't see that happening. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't see it happening. I think you're more likely to have a demoralization negative effect of people on the right if they don't perceive anything happening. But I don't think that the right is the right. It's not that I don't think the right is capable of using violence, but I don't think that these individuals that he's talking about, they're going to want to use a particular target. It's not going to be some just random stuff. I just don't think that that is likely. Okay. It may be that there's some situation and a guy loses his cool and gets more violent on the right. I could see that happening. I don't see some sort of premeditated random shooting of some leftist, right? I don't see that happening yet. It's so that's the kind of thing that starts to happen when they are boxed into a corner. The right is not boxed into the corner. We control the presidency. We control the military. And the right wants more things to be done with Trump. There's no question about that. But they are not at this stage. Like I said, it's more of a demoralization issue at this point after Charlie Kirk, if nothing happens. But Trump has to walk this line carefully. So this is what I think is going on. They are trying to bait a civil war. That is what they want. They want a civil war. They have always wanted a civil war. And it started off with them you know, arresting people during Biden, saying all sorts of stuff. There was all sorts of antagonism to try to get the right to respond. January 6th with a provocation, right? Nobody was violent. Aside from like some scuffles with police, most of which was in self-defense, people weren't violent. No one brought guns. Okay? It's a big scam. But this is one of the things, right? This is one of the big things that they want to happen. They really want that civil war. They want to break apart the United States. They cannot win if the United States is against them. If Trump controls the US military and the US military is against them, they cannot win. Okay? So they have lost their control over the board. They are in spoiler mode right now. They're trying to destroy us because they're hoping for a draw, as far as I'm concerned. They're hoping that they can fuck things up for us so badly that they can somehow regain their position of power, or that they can bait us into something, whatever. They're hoping that if they can, they can kill Trump, they can send things off the rail. They're looking for that Hail Mary shot that, if happens, will improve their position and give them another lease on life. They are extremely dangerous, and they are not defeated in a linear sense. They just don't really have a way to win, but they have ways to stop us from winning, in the sense of being able to create what we want to create, which creates a much more dysfunctional world, which cannot be as much easily as a golden age. They can try to stop us from getting to a golden age. They can't create their dystopian network anymore. That's done. It's just not going to happen. So they're trying to not lose as badly, and that's still not a good thing. The administration has to walk this line carefully. You notice every single thing that Trump and his team have done has been to pin the left in the worst mimetic positions possible. So they get the left to support things that are unsupportable, right? The stuff with illegals. The, notice that ICE prioritized the worst people, like murderers, pedophiles, and he got the left to say, oh, they use those cases as the bait for the due process motions. So you found the Democrats having to explain to the public why it was bad that Trump was trying to get pedophiles and murderers, legal pedophiles and murderers, out of the country to their home countries in many cases. Trump is a master at this. This is narrative destruction. It creates all sorts of dissonance, and it destroys the moral authority, which is the very important thing that the left had to stand on. Okay? Trump cannot lose moral authority. He can't lose moral authority. We can't lose moral authority. So what Trump does has to be very precise, and it has to be thought out. And we also have to take into consideration is he able to even get some things through the institutions, or what are the institutions going to do? What are the bad actors going to do to stop him? So Trump is going to they're going to let this escalate. You notice that Vance is pointing out the same things in the bullet casings. We want the left to own this. But I'm going to disagree with Cernovich here, and I don't know if he's doing it just to kind of, he has a way of doing this. I'm not being, critical. It's a rhetorical technique. Is he actually serious that he thinks that's going to happen, or is he doing it just to, help try to have people frame it in a different way? I think that the Trump administration is trying to get absolute max credibility, and the left is doing this for them by shooting at ICE agents, by shooting up, the country club in New Hampshire. So this stuff is all coming. I'm not saying that there's a delay only for those reasons. I'm just saying that they probably view it's better for the public to have, let's prove to the public, let's let the left for themselves prove that this is not a one-off in how they are with Charlie Kirk. This is really how they are. Of course, you have the problems with the media. Are the media going to report on these things? A lot of leftists live in their bubble world. So it's mostly at this point to galvanize the right so that they will ultimately do what has to be done. This was an interesting tweet by Diomedes Appreciator, a good dude. If Trump declares martial law tomorrow, the left would win decisively. They would have nearly complete institutional support and would be able to claim he's a dictator and probably get international support. They would have the legitimacy advantage. He has to deconstruct their institutional power without going too hard or too fast and triggering an organizational street uprising he would lose. It's a race to see if he can weaken them enough that when things get hot, we have a chance to hold the line. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with it. I don't 100% disagree with it, but I don't agree with it. And I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with it. I do not think the left has legitimacy, and I do not think that they have relevant institutional control. They do have control over the media organizations, and Fox can certainly play the role of turncoat. If Fox plays the role of turncoat, that will definitely affect things in the public. But most people in the public, more and more people in the public, are not getting their news from the mainstream media. They are getting their news from social media, and X is the biggest news platform on there. X literally changes the world. Anybody who doubts that at this point is totally naive. Definitely get out offline and touch grass for your own, physical, mental, spiritual health, but don't get offline and stop posting altogether. You need to be posting. It's making a difference. It has absolutely changed the conversation across Europe. I can tell you this from people on the ground in Britain who have said that the conversations that have happened on X completely changed the zeitgeist. So I do not agree that that the left has institutional legitimacy. I think they have very little legitimacy. And I do think that Trump is purging their people from the institutions. Now, where I do have some agreement and overlap is this. He has not purged everybody from the institutions. We have the helm now, but there are a lot of turncoats in the DOJ, in the FBI, in the military, we're finding out, okay? Tons of communist indoctrination within the military. Do we have full control over the military accordingly? No, I don't think that we do. I do think we have control over the military, and I think that the issues are manageable. I only see the left is going to try to entrench themselves in blue states, in blue cities. And as I've said in previous shows this season, that they will have some, Paris communes type uprisings where they're basically not going to let the feds into the city if they can sustain that. The issue is that how can you sustain that when you are going up against the NSA, Palantir? The biggest thing that Trump has to watch out for are traitors among his midst, as always. So I do not think this tweet would have been correct in 2020. It was absolutely correct in 2020, which is why Trump did the right thing by leaving us on the battlefield, us J6ers on the battlefield to be taken hostage. And, he had to pull back. It was a tactical retreat in order to preserve the fight, to keep the fight going. Those are the most difficult decisions for a military commander, a tactical retreat. To accept a loss, especially when you have to basically sentence certain units to annihilation in order to preserve the rest of the army. But that's what he did. He preserved MAGA by stepping back. If Trump had gone forward when he did in 2020, when he didn't have that institutional support, things would have blown up. He would have lost. MAGA would have been crushed. Would have been Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro, of course, he was in such a bad position in Brazil that probably he should have done that because he didn't have a choice. But Trump had enough protection that he was able to weather the storm. They were not that strong when they took office. Okay, so I don't agree that they would win right now. But what would happen? We could have a lot of chaos. You could have a lot of uprisings. You could have a lot of disorder that would be highly distracting for the administration to have to deal with, and would still bear the risk of spiraling out of control. This would give Davos, the cabal, etc., breathing space to do many of the things that they would want to do, because we would not be able to have them pinned in the right way. They would be able to meddle a ton, and it would also affect us financially, which is a major element of this war. Of course, our bond markets would start to collapse. Capital would maybe move back into Europe from the United States if there was uprisings and separations. Don't discount. This is the best stuff that Tom Luongo does, but it's the most inaccessible, including for myself. It's always hard to understand. The money flows are really, really important. What Trump has been doing is recapitalizing the United States. He's trying to pull all of the money from around the world into the US through tariffs, through all these various agreements, trade agreements. Everything is about countries having to bring money back into the US. That's why everybody keeps saying that, oh, you have the same, you have people who are like on this script about the fact that like America's just going to go runaway inflation, CBDCs. They can't get out of their head. That was the plan for America. It's not going to happen. Trump got in the office. It's over. They're using crypto to recapitalize the American bond market. You actually pay attention, you understand it, even just a little bit, you can understand. They're using crypto as a sink to soak up all that money, and they're recapitalizing the country. That's what's happening. Europe is fucked. Europe is big fucked right now. They're bankrupt. They have bankrupted themselves with green policies. Trump is bankrupting them more with their big war aims. Okay, this is the next thing we got to talk about here. It all ties together. This beautiful Trump True Social post. I'm going to read this. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it's causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should never have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all of the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it is almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed, and all of the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is being spent fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form and, who knows, maybe go even further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO and NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all. Okay. Okay. Look, I understand the knee-jerk reaction. The knee-jerk reaction to this is to get really upset. I can't look at all these things that Trump's saying. Oh my God, I knew it. Trump's a neocon. Trump wants the war. Okay, guys. Trump has been saying this war is a joke for the entire time, saying it's a bad idea. He's tried to go for a peace agreement. Europe won't sign a peace agreement. Zelensky won't sign a peace agreement. We insisted that Zelensky give up territories, including territory it had not lost yet, right? Because that was the agreement. They had to give up all of the Donbass, and then the contact line would be frozen in Zaporozhye and Kherson as well, I think. I'm not sure if it's relevant for Kherson. They didn't accept it. So what is Trump doing? This is like a game technique. It's like agree and amplify, right? Saying, oh, yeah, you guys, okay. Because this is the thing. They want this war because the war is how these European countries, the EU and the UK, are going to be able to get out of their crisis of, you know, collapsing support in the country. Now, I'm not saying that the public really wants this war either. I don't think that that's a problem in their equation, but they need to have some sort of pretext to enact totalitarian controls. And if we are in a war with Russia, then they're able to do that. Then they are able to implement the CBDC system because you cannot have capital flight out of the continent anymore, because that's going to be against the war effort. So they use all sorts of wartime measures to basically freeze capital flight and to rationalize increasing totalitarian control. And by the way, they flooded your country with migrants, mostly military-aged men, some of whom they will bring into the fighting. By the way, did you know a lot of these people who have come in are from terror cells that the British government developed? So they know these people. They just, they have no work to do in the Middle East anymore, so they bring them over here. So, but the problem for Europe is this. They are fucking broke. They are broke because they have played their green climate game. Trump talked about this at the UN, how, they've declined their emissions by like 35%, but unfortunately, the world increased it by 55%. So, emissions still went up globally, but Europe just deindustrialized itself. And of course, they made their energy more expensive through the Nord Stream blow up. Okay. And what else? What else happened? Oh, there's this 5% defense spending that Trump's making them do. Look at this. Look at this money. How much did NATO agree to purchase from the US in recent Trump EU agreement? So all of this stuff is not America paying for it. It's Europe and Canada buying weapons from the United States for Ukraine. We are not really, I'm not saying that Congress doesn't pass some stuff, but the point is here, he's doing an amplification thing. He says, okay, you guys really want a war with Russia. Well, guess what? Okay, fair enough. You can buy weapons to fight the war. Isn't that great? Sure. I'll happily let you continue the war. You just got to buy all these weapons from us. No, we're not going to get involved, but we'll support you. Good job. Go after it. You guys got to handle. You guys got total control of this. In this post, there is not a single time where Trump says that the US is going to get involved. Everything is about Europe, Europe, Europe. He mentions NATO, which is not the same thing as the United States going in and supporting this stuff. The US is not going to get involved against Russia. What he is telling them is he's saying, hey guys, you really want this war? Well, guess what? Ukraine's amazing. Ukraine is the strongest country in the world. It's never been doing better. It's never been doing better. That's what you guys have been saying in the media all the time, right? Ukraine's not having any problems. I agree. You're right. So now go put your money where your mouth is and go fight against Russia. Now's the time for your war. Do you want... This is a great point, Fox. Thank you for emphasizing this. He actually distanced himself from NATO in the message. He talks about it, and it's the same thing with this too, right? NATO agreed to purchase from the US. This is like a separate, it's almost like it's a separate organization now. He speaks of NATO as a customer, not comrades. Exactly. So this is what it is. And he's telling, and it's ludicrous stuff like Russia's like a total embarrassment, and the people are ready to, if the people knew, they'd overthrow. He's basically feeding them all of their bullshit propaganda in a single tweet, which I can't even read non-sarcastically. It's so obvious amplification of their own bullshit, because then what are they supposed to say? What are they supposed to say? This is what they want. Well, I don't really want that, actually. Okay, you first. No, you're the one who wanted it, though. Why don't you just go and do it? They're so weak, and you're so strong. Just go do it. Trump brought Putin to Alaska, the United States, without anybody in Europe. They had a long meeting. They were having a great time together. You don't think for a second that this stuff wasn't discussed? Now, look, I do think that Trump and Putin are working together on some level, but don't get it twisted. Russia is a great power. America is a great power. If Trump has a problem with the deep state, so is Russia. If Trump can get the deep state, Davos, to go fight against Russia and get Russia to do the dirty work for him, I don't think that Trump actually enjoys the fact that Russians are dying in this war. I don't think he's a sick person like that. But just from a simple geostrategic standpoint, I've heard it say, well, why not just let them rot on the vine? Well, first off, you can't do that because they are funding terror cells, through this is the same group, right? So you can, the money is ultimately coming from the same place, the same pool. If you break Europe, the left collapses in America very soon thereafter. You break Davos, you break Soros, right? So it's a two-front war. Let's look at it that way. It's a two-front war. Why do we in America want to have a bigger front here? Let's have Russia deal with Europe and break them over there. And it's in Russia's interest too, because then they have a much greater control over the security architecture of Europe afterwards. So everything about this is all making sense. But we get to the main point here, which is that where is this going to go? What do we have to watch out for? Trump is still trying to sort through who is good and bad in the administration. There's still many, many bad eggs throughout the bureaucracy. And this is going to get ugly. Okay? This is going to get really ugly. And I'm going to close with this thought for you guys, so you guys can really ruminate on this, because it's actually a really poignant thought. Okay. In World War II, the last year of the war, there were the most casualties. I've said this before on this show, but I want to really emphasize it. It was the last year of the war that you had the most casualties. So you think about all those battles in 1939, 1940, 1941, 1942. It increased every single year until it was over. And by the way, millions were still dying after the war, all throughout 46, because of the aftermath and the starvation and the consequences. As the war came to its close, the carnage became indescribable. So, just because you're near the end, it doesn't mean that it's getting easier. It will get harder and harder and harder, all the way until you cross the finish line. And even when you breathe a sigh of relief, you are still going to be dealing with the aftermath for years to come. That is what we are dealing with right now. That is where we are at. We are going through the storm. I don't know. It's been so abused at this point. It doesn't even have the same. I could have said it in a normal way. It seems like it's overused, but it is. It's the storm. Miller said it himself. We are the storm, right? In a speech. So this is where we're going. Okay, this is where we're going. There is going to be a lot more violence. There's going to be a lot more violence, and I don't know if Cernovich is right, for instance, about that escalator stop being a run-up for an assassination attempt. But you got to think about it. You definitely got to think about this stuff. They are vicious, and they are not going to go down without a fight. And you are going to see more and more random acts of killing. So, as usual, connect with people in your community, protect yourself. Don't look for provocations. Do not look for provocations. They will look for you as a target. If you make yourself a target, they'll go after you. And we have not even begun to see how bad things are going to get. I really think from now until February, This is an astro reading, right? From now until February are going to be really intense. And the arrest of James Comey coming the next few days, as we get more arrests coming up the pipeline, you're going to see more crazy stuff happen. And you're going to see the wartime footing increase. You know, isn't it crazy? Just my fucking luck, right? Stuck in the States during Biden or prison. Oh, it's Trump. I'm going to go to Europe now. Everything's good. And now we're going to get a war in Europe. I'm going to be in Poland. I hope Poland is not going to get involved, and I don't think it will. I think actually this was a major piece of the puzzle when Nawrocki won the Polish presidency. That was huge because technically the president controls the armed forces, even though the prime minister has the most power in the system. The president, as the head of state, has the armed forces, has veto control over many things. I think that was a really big piece of the puzzle. They were going to, Tusk was going to, the prime minister was going to try to escalate a lot of these recent provocations, like the drones and everything that came over. And Duda, the prior president, and now Nawrocki have put the kibosh on that. I can tell you this: Poles, they have a legitimate military, really the only ground military in Europe. The only military that will actually fight for its country, too, I think, when push comes to shove, because it's not, let's be blunt, deracinated. It's not. But the Poles at this point are not keen on Ukraine. The president, Nawrocki, has already done, kicking out Bandera people who wave Bandera flags are getting deported from the country. Ukraine is not in good graces with Poland so much right now. That window closed earlier in the war. It was there earlier in the war. It's not. I think when the prior leader of peace, Kaczynski, had some designs on Western Ukraine, that's not happening. Polish people don't want anything. I was just there in the spring. They don't want anything to do with this. There's not a single Polish person. Not a single Polish person wants to go to war with Russia. Not a single fucking one. Okay? So it's all a psyop. They understand that Russia is not going after them. They may not like Russia, but they're not that fucking stupid. So they're going to try to get Poland involved. They're going to try to use Poland as the next scapegoat. Poland's going to resist. A lot of the Poles are sick of the Ukrainians. I mean, I heard mixed things. I think some were like, some of them integrate well. Some of them do not. There's a lot of arrogance that they don't really like about them. But anyway, guys, it's a great COVID cabal. I don't know when the next one's going to be. Definitely Monday. Maybe we'll have one more beforehand. But I'll see you guys next time. Take care.